I was talking to Marco Rubio again yesterday. When we talk about trade, but we also talk about Ukraine. We also talk about geopolitics. And Marco is coming next week to Canada because we're having our second foreign ministers meeting in Charlevoix in Quebec. And we want to keep the G7 unity. Now, Rubio is somebody that I have a very constructive relationship with. And he has not used necessarily that threatful rhetoric when talking with me, but others have. The problem we have is, first, there's only one decision maker. And all the other secretaries and all the different aides of Trump are trying to think what the president will do and what he will decide. So they're not decisional. Second, they don't talk to each other. So the problem is you can have Besson talking about 10% tariffs on China, and then I call Mexico to see, did you have that conversation? Oh no, we're not committed to that, And then when I talk to my counterpart, he may not know that was a comment that was made, or Howard Lutnick can throw many things on the wall to see whether things will stick. So and at the same time, it's unclear to me whether President Trump is actually committed to all his secretaries. So it makes for a very unpredictable and chaotic environment. When I work with Prime Minister Trudeau or with the future Prime Minister, we actually have a game plan. And I know what's, in French I would say, my sandbox. What are my limits, where I can go, what I can do. Sometimes I push them a bit because, that's part of why I'm the foreign affairs minister now. But, it's because you have to understand how you can defend your files, how you can, defend your people. And we, right now it's mainly Minister of Finance, Dominic LeBlanc, and I, and, we get along extremely well. And Prime Minister Trudeau, that's pretty much who is working on this, of course, supported by Kirsten Hellman in Washington. But there is a free-flowing of information. And from the moment I'm finished with my conversation with Rubio, they're briefed on what happened, and I'm briefed on what happened with Lutnick. But that is not happening in Washington. The issue we have right now is that Canada is facing 3 executive orders. And that's really important to bear in mind when understanding this entire trade war. The first one is the fentanyl one. We're still operating under that one. But when the Trump administration is talking to us, particularly Howard Lutnick, there are 2 others. The second one is on steel and aluminum. And that one is coming into force March 12th. That executive order was put into place at the time by the Trump administration. And when Biden came in, he did a similar one, but exempted the EU and us. And now he has not exempted the EU and us. And so March 12th, it's all the exporters of steel and aluminum to the US that will be facing that. That will have an impact on homes, like the price of homes in the US, particularly new homes. The US is very reliant, particularly on our aluminum. And that's why I went also to Europe, and that's why also the Prime Minister met with President von der Leyen, because we need to have the same, or pretty much the same countermeasures. We need together to really have the same type of list of countermeasures, because we're doubling down on products that will have an impact politically in Republican states. So making sure that we're putting 25% tariffs not only us, but the entire Europeans, on motorcycles, on Harley Davidsons, or on uh, um, like dishwashers, or like I could go on and on and on. There's a list, but we think that part of our $30 billion first tranche will actually also be linked to aluminum, steel and aluminum. Okay, so we have to bear that in mind. And then there's a third executive order, which is the most important one, and that one President Trump asked on Inauguration Day, all through that executive order, that all federal agencies come back to him, and there's 500 public servants working on that in Washington, that they come back to him with a study of all the different trade relationships that the U.S. has. And what they're looking at is to see what will be the relationship of the U.S. with all its trading partners. So we have to bear in mind that we can't only have a 30-day pause, but the big end game is that April 1st, third executive order, because this is not only about us, but this is about all the other trading partners and how we will also have access to the American market, but also in competition with others. Well, I think one of the big things we did during the Trump administration 1.0 was actually to sign CETA and to be closer to Europe. Now, we need to be closer to the UK. That's what I said also to the Starmer government. We need to re-empower that Commonwealth bound that we have with that country. We need to be closer to the EU, while the Trump administration will try to weaken it. And I think that definitely Europe needs what we can offer. Just give you two examples. All the fertilizers that Europeans are still using come from Belarus or from Russia, and they're still not sanctioned. We have the potash they need. We can send them, but that relationship has not been created necessarily. And well, there is a free trade agreement, so that needs to happen. We have all the uranium that Europe needs. France still uses Kazakhstan as a place to source its own uranium. As we know, Kazakhstan is much more under the Russian influence reality. So we can have this interdependence with Europe. And in the Indo-Pacific strategy, I said 2.5 years ago, we should be as close to Japan and South Korea than we are from Germany, France, UK, and the EU in general. So we need to be able to do that. But at the same time, I think what is much more easier is for Canadians to do business amongst each other. We need to have commercial missions from Ontario going to Quebec or going to New Brunswick or going to BC or Alberta, rather than going to Maine or Michigan. And I think because of our different programs, also for a long time, we were we were creating incentives to make sure that there would be much more international trade. We need to make sure that that trade is happening within our country.